Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator of Fantasy Guides and FantasyGuides.com, Stephen Rippey, and no one else, normally joined by our spreadsheet wizard, AJ Cleaver, but he's getting married. So Stephen said, yeah, you're not showing up, your wife will. But let's hop on over to that. Quarterbacks, tight ends to round us off. We'll go through 5 each here, sections of quarterbacks, starting with number 1, possibly the greatest quarterback in fantasy football right now because, man, Josh Allen ain't doing it. Lamar Jackson is your top option this week against the Washington Commanders. Then Jalen Hurts against the Browns. Jaden Daniels against the Ravens. Joe Burrow against the Giants at 4. In rounding out the top 5 is Dak Prescott and what will hopefully be a shootout against the Lions. Who do you want to talk about here in your top 5?
Hey, I do want to. I should post this or share it with you, Andrew. I took in one league, a home league, Lamar Jackson first out of all the quarterbacks.
Wow!
I put my money where my mouth was. He was my number 1 ranked quarterback. Actually, I may have had him too. I think I had Hurts at 1.
I also had Hurts at 1.
I think I had Hurts and then Lamar, but I definitely had Lamar at number 2. Drafted him, so that's looking decent. He's going to be good in this one. We just talked about the Washington game, which is why I have Jaden Daniels that high as well. The one I couldn't decide on the rankings, and I didn't lose too much sleep over it because we're ranking top 10 quarterbacks, but was Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. I decided to put Hurts above him because they're playing at home. He's at the bye week. He's got all his weapons back. I think Jalen Hurts could do good in this one, but that's the only one where I could see me flip-flopping it between him and Daniels. But I think these are pretty chalk. I did have somebody think it was crazy that I had Hurts ranked that high, so maybe he's the one I discuss. The guy hasn't had any weapons this year. Like, A.J. Brown's played in 1 game, and he didn't have Devonta Smith the last time he played. And, yeah, he hasn't been as good, but isn't that part of the reason why? He's had 16, 23, 11, and 16 points. Yeah, it's not been great. The ceiling hasn't been there yet, but I think it comes back. Now, this is another tough matchup against Cleveland, but they are 8.5-point favorites. So if they're going to score touchdowns, I got to think he's somewhat involved in that.
The issue with the Browns defense is they're still really good. It's actually just the same defense. They brought everyone back, and they're playing just as well. But Deshaun Watson can't stay on the field for more than 2 seconds at a time.
And he puts them in bad situations.
Exactly. So the Eagles are going to run a ton of plays. You know what happens when the Eagles run a ton of plays? A couple of moon balls are going to hit A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith's hands. Do not fret on Jalen Hurts. We've talked about him as a buy low. You want to keep Jalen Hurts in your life.
And anybody that asks me, Andrew, I've started answering it this way. I'm not trying to be dicky or anything, but this is just the truth. When somebody goes Jaden Daniels or Jalen Hurts, I've heard Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson. And I have just been answering whichever one you don't trade before Sunday. That's the one you start.
It's a fact. Why do you have both? There's no reason. Try to ship them off. You're never going to get full value for a quarterback. Like, oh, he's a QB2. I should get RB2 value. No, you're not getting that. Go get you a nice RB1, RB2. Get your value. Ship them off. Get you something.
Andrew, in a league I'm in that I drafted, the one I was telling you about, I had Lamar Jackson. With my last pick, I took Justin Fields. And somebody who was really hurting at quarterback, I just swapped the Carolina backfield, Chuba and Brooks, and Justin Fields for Christian McCaffrey. And I'm just crossing my fingers that November hits and McCaffrey's good to go.
Hopefully. Comeback double Achilles, man.
Yep.
Moving on to the next chunk of quarterbacks, numbers 6 through 10. We got Jordan Love against the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray on the other side of that against the Packers. Then Josh Allen at QB8 against the Jets. Caleb Williams sneaks into your top 10 against the Jaguars at 9. And rounding out the top 10 is Justin Fields against the Las Vegas Raiders. Caleb Williams, top 10 for you? Already, you're feeling better?
I'm surprised you didn't say anything about Josh Allen at 8.
We'll get there next.
Okay. Caleb Williams, yeah. I mean, they are passing a ton. He's starting to, I would say, close the gap. There's a big gap right now between him and Jaden Daniels. But I don't know. He looked pretty good the last game that he just played Carolina. He finishes the QB6, threw for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 34. Now he's got Jacksonville, who Jacksonville is a hot mess. They're worse than Carolina's defense. And so I think he's going to keep it going at home. Jaguars giving up the most points to the quarterback position. They're giving up the second most passing yards. This all looks good for him. I still, even with fat Keenan Allen, I think he's got one of the better weapon groups to throw to. So, yeah, it's probably the highest I've had Caleb ranked all season.
People were questioning whether or not the Chicago Bears should take a lineman or if they should take a receiver. Thank goodness the Chicago Bears brought in Roma Odunze because it makes that way more potent. I'm with you. Caleb's figuring it out. We're seeing the Chicago Bears make adjustments from Shane Waldron's standpoint, who was terrible game plan to start the year. Hopefully things start to get better there. But yes, Josh Allen. How close is your hand to the panic button on what we're seeing with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills?
Pretty high. I was listening to Dwayne McFarland talk on the podcast the other day, and he said he was pretty sure this is the lowest he's had Josh Allen ranked. And I haven't adjusted my rankings since hearing that, but I'm looking at mine, and I'm like, this is probably the lowest I've had him ranked too that I can remember. I mean, he's always locked in as a top 5 when you do your rankings. Every week, you just look and you go, okay, let's just go ahead and pencil in. Maybe he's not number 1 every week, but he's pretty high, right? And but this is a tough matchup. The Jets giving up the second fewest fantasy points to the position. I don't think any of these receivers, if you watched Minnesota last week, Sam Darnold really struggled to pass against them. Justin Jefferson had his worst performance of the year. He still got you 15 fantasy points, but it was tough to come by. And that's Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison had nothing going. This is a tough. All 3 of their corners look really good. And none of the Bills. Shakir, I don't know. I haven't seen if he practiced today. Let me see. He's their best wide receiver right now, and he's banged up. Let me just see real quick. Does not practice on Thursday, so he's not playing, Andrew. I can almost guarantee you with that ankle injury. I don't think this Bills wide receiver unit can move the ball against him. Dalton Kincaid hasn't shown me that he can do much. So what are we really expecting with Josh Allen in this one?
Run for your life,
Hopefully he does, but I'm not convinced he's not out of the concussion protocol after last week's game. I mean, he looked like he got completely rocked.
No, Steven, that was a back injury. His head bouncing hurt his back.
Yeah, and the fact that he was dizzy and like looking into space for 5 seconds, that had nothing to do with it.
His back hurt.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm worried about Josh Allen. I am hitting the panic button. First of all, we told you not to draft him. Well, I don't know about Jacob might have said to draft him. You and I think we're saying not to draft him.
I was wanting no piece of it, but I ended up drafting him in a league because he fell to like the 5th round.
You didn't put your money where your mouth was. Dang it! He went
to the 5th round. I had to.
Man, I will say too, he's had 3 games under 15 fantasy points, 2 single-digit games, which you might get one of those from Josh Allen a season. He's had 2 already, and last week Keon Coleman scored on some fluky touchdown where he was running on the sideline, and I don't know if the players didn't realize they maybe thought he was out of bounds, which actually the replay showed it looked like he did step out of bounds. You take away that fluky long touchdown, and he's another single-digit performance. He only had 9 completions last week. So, yeah, I'm
9 for 30.
I'm pretty panicked on Josh Allen.
All right, last one I want to talk about in this top 10. Justin Fields, you have him in the top 10, a guy who we weren't expecting to be the starter for Pittsburgh to begin the year. He's looking pretty stinking good. How great do you feel about Justin Fields at 10, or did you kind of force yourself to put him there?
A little bit of both. Well, Jacob and I both thought Fields would be the starter. Now, we weren't counting on a calf injury for Russell Wilson keeping him out, but hey, we both thought he'd be the starter sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
That matchup's good. It's not amazing. It's not an amazing matchup for Fields, although PFF does have it as a 10 out of 10, so they think it's amazing. I'm just saying what the Raiders have given up to the position.
7th best schedule adjusted. The Raiders have played a lot of doo-doo cheeks quarterbacks.
Yeah, they did kind of slow down Lamar. That game I'm just chalking up to fluky.
They ran the ball the entire time because they were up the whole time and then lost the game at the end.
That was a fluky game.
Yeah.
I do think it's a good matchup. I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to move the ball at all. So I think Justin Fields, that was the thing when the Steelers played the Cowboys. I don't feel like he was on the field enough. The Cowboys just kept having these long drives and then they like turn it over in the end zone. Mm-hmm. And so he just wasn't on the field that much, which is a big part of the reason why his fantasy day wasn't as good. I think he's going to be on the field plenty in this one. I think he's going to have plenty of opportunities. If you give Justin Fields enough opportunities, eventually he'll run one in, get a big long run. George Pickens is a good wide receiver. And I think Freiermuth has an advantage at the tight end position there too. So yeah, it's kind of like, where do you put him? I think 10, where I've got him, QB 10. I think that's just about where it felt right.
He feels safe. It's
Yeah.
been the last 3 weeks, 18 points, 31 points, 16 points. It feels safe.
It does.
Started off a little slow. We got there, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
All right, getting ourselves to 15. QB 11, CJ Stroud against the Patriots. QB 12, Daniel Jones against the Bengals. Brock Purdy then against the Seahawks going on Thursday. QB 14, Kirk Cousins, Mr. 500 yards against the Panthers. And Geno Smith was your QB 15. I'll throw in an extra there because of the Thursday night. Jared Goff is your QB 16 against the Cowboys.
Okay, I got to be way higher than on Daniel Jones. Please tell me I'm way higher.
I believe so. Why are you so high on Daniel Jones while I look for this?
He's a QB 14 in fantasy right now.
Don't tell anyone. They won't believe you.
I told people he was going to be a value this year. I knew it. He was a top 10 quarterback just 2 years ago. And what does the team do? Add Malik Neighbors into and they didn't have Wan'Dale Robinson for since Daniel Jones has been there. Wan'Dale Robinson hasn't been available.
You're 5 spots higher this week on Jones,
which is pretty high for a quarterback.
Oh yeah.
It's all matchup. They're going to have to be playing from behind because I do think the Bengals should be ahead most of this game. Bengals giving up the 5th most fantasy points to the position, the 5th most passing touchdowns. They're actually giving up a lot of rushing yards. Now, have they played Baltimore? Yeah, they just played them last week.
Yeah.
So that's probably a big part of it. But Daniel Jones has shown that he's going to run. He had 11 rushing attempts against Seattle last week. Only 38 yards, but that's 4 points, essentially. He'll probably get you decent rushing yards in this one. The only thing that might make me lower him is Malik Neighbors did not practice today, which is kind of crazy because he played on Thursday night the previous week.
He's out with a concussion so far, yeah.
Yeah, like that must have been a really bad... Now, Andrew, I'll admit, when he got the concussion, I had stopped watching that game. So I didn't see if he got a really bad hit. I didn't see it. So
I think he kind of laid there on the sideline for a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah, so if he doesn't have Malik Neighbors, I'm not as excited about it. I will probably drop him in my rankings. This was I just assumed Neighbors should be back. So it must be a pretty bad concussion. So I will drop him if that's the case, because as much as I do like Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, I think they're still just, they're backup wide receivers for the most part. So I will lower him a little bit, but I'll probably still keep him maybe around the QB 15 to 16 range. Maybe right behind maybe right ahead of Anthony Richardson. Sorry, Andrew. Might move him to QB 17.
I don't know how Daniel Jones did it. He had 22 points last week against the Seahawks, again without Malik Neighbors. Hopefully Malik Neighbors goes. But again, NFL Pro has these stats they show, and they have 2 categories of overall passing efficiency, overall rushing efficiency. The Bengals ranked 29th against passing efficiency and 30th against rushing efficiency. That defense is terrible.
Yeah. And I mean, he had a good game against Cleveland. He's gone over 230 passing yards, 3 straight games, which a lot of quarterbacks are struggling to do right now. So, yeah, I think I posted about it. Overhated. I think he could have a decent game in this one. And they're at home, which gives me a little more hope for him.
Are you afraid that Kirk Cousins and the Falcons will beat the Panthers too much and he'll have a bad week because the Panthers were down by too much too early?
I don't know. We've seen one explosion game for Kirk Cousins. Now, maybe that's all it took. Maybe he's now all right, I know what I'm doing now. I know how this offense is working. But if you look at the game logs leading up to last week's game, it wasn't looking pretty for Kirk Cousins. Not a lot of yards, hardly any touchdowns. And then last week, he threw the ball 58 times. Now, remind me, they were down for most of that game, correct?
It was just throwing punches back and forth.
Was it? Okay.
Leads being swapped constantly.
I watched the game. It's been a week now. I can't.
You're old. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But I think there's probably a little bit of a comeback to earth. Well, obviously, he's not going to throw for 500 yards in this next game. But I don't think it's going to be because they're ahead by so much. I think that this game, it's going to be closer than this 6.5 point spread would lead me to believe. If they were at home, maybe I'd be a little higher on them, blowing them out. But playing on the road, I think it'll be a little closer.
Go outside the top 16 of quarterbacks. Who's the one who's probably sitting on somebody's waiver wire that last second when a guy pops up and can't go because his family has to go on an emergency vacation to Disney? who are you willing to grab off the waivers and start and feel okay about?
Oh, not feel okay about. But this is literally just, I got nothing else. This is all I can do. And that's Will Levis. And it's just, sorry, Andrew, it's your Colts again. It's playing at home with, I think, still two decent wide receivers, a good running back. If we just get one good Will Levis game, I think it could be this week against the Colts.
Hopefully it doesn't happen to my Colts, but hopefully for fantasy football, it'll happen. I think it could. He likes to chuck it deep, and the Colts can't stop anything deep. That'll round out our quarterbacks. Now let's talk tight ends. And
Ugh.
it's gross. Let's just rattle off the top 6 that we have for this week. Tight ends were supposed to be good this year. One has been. George Kittle is the tight end 1 tonight. Won't talk about him. Going on Thursday. Trey McBride is your tight end 2 against the Packers. Jake Ferguson in the shootout with the Lions. Brock Bowers is number 4 against the Steelers. Tucker Kraft is number 5 against the Arizona Cardinals. Who do you want to talk about in this top 5?
Well, the only one, because we can't have nice things with tight ends this year, is Tucker Kraft was looking awesome. I was so excited. I recommended him as a start last week. Had a great week, 24 fantasy points. The week before, he had 17. He's been targeted 14 times over the last 2 weeks, and then he pops up on the injury report with a groin injury.
No.
Was limited today. So we just can't have nice things at the tight end position. Hopefully, he's fine. It's not an amazing matchup. It's a fine matchup. It's okay. So, but you just, tight end's so bad. If he's going, put him in your lineup. I think the best matchup that stands out is probably Kyle Pitts out of some of these tight ends. So if you're questioning starting him, which I don't think you are if you have him based on the landscape, keep him in your lineup. PFF also has it really highly rated as an 8 out of 10 on their PFF scale. Can we please get an Evan Ingram return? I mean, I'd love to see that. That would be nice.
It looks like he's on pace to return. We have not seen him play yet this season. Since warming up before the game, he pulled his hamstring. Old man hamstrings get pulled. It happens. Kyle Pitts, I'm on this. It's a good matchup, and I want to get excited. We probably should have had Kyle Pitts as a sell high at our trade video. Kyle Pitts is a 13% target share on the season. He's no games of a 20% target share or higher. He's the 3rd to 4th option in that offense. He had a good week last week because when Kirk Cousins throws the ball 60 times,
yeah, exactly,
it's going to end up getting you 8 targets on a 15% target share. So he's a little bit fraudulent there. I'm all board on the Tucker Kraft train. I've been calling him out every week as stash this dude. Get ready for him.
Yeah.
Wait for the Packers. Love me some Tucker Kraft. We'll just get into the rest of our tight end rankings. Kyle Pitts was our tight end 6, as we said, against the Panthers. Sam Laporta all the way down at 7 against the Cowboys. Dalton Kincaid against the Jets at 8. Dallas Goedert against the Browns at 9. Evan Ingram, 10 against the Bears. Pat Freiermuth is 11 against the Raiders. And Tyler Conklin is 12 against the Bills. Who else stands out to you there?
I think, have you been hearing the nicknames Cardio Conklin?
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, eventually, you start getting targeted, right? It's a good matchup for him. PFF has it a 9 out of 10 on their scale. So I like this one. I think he's a guy that could stand out. I think Pat Freiermuth, PFF has the advantage for him in this matchup against the Raiders. It's a 10 out of 10 on their scale. So I really like him. And how far did you get? Did you get to 12? Or
just talk about anyone. All fair game.
The only other ones I'll bring up is Zach Ertz, who I've got ranked at 14. I think this is a matchup that could suit him. Baltimore giving up a lot to the tight end position, so I think he could be decent. And it's not been pretty. He's been pretty bad all season, but Dalton Schultz without Nico Collins, I think we could see some good games come from him. So Dalton Schultz is somebody that I've been recommending as a sit for many weeks, but in this offense without Nico, I think he could actually have some good games.
I'm really rooting for Mr. Cole Kmet as well. A tight end we've really seen come on, have a good target share. His utilization's gone up because for some reason Shane Waldron really liked Gerald Everett, his best friend, whatever. That's finally starting to change. Another development that I just don't know what to do with, Baltimore Ravens tight ends.
Oh, God.
Isaiah Likely has been playing more snaps lately than Mark Andrews. And he had another big week, incredibly fraudulent on the amount of receptions and targets he had. Mark Andrews, though, I got reminded, he had the same injury that Tony Pollard and Tank Dell got. And that's been slowing them down. Now, I don't know if that's the only thing to blame, but what are you doing with which tight end would you rather play, Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews?
Likely, for sure. If you can get anything for Andrews, I mean, he's droppable at this point. He scored 9 fantasy points last week, and I was trying to decide if like I had him as a sit, and I was like, was that right? Because we're at a point now with Mark Andrews where it's like you're excited about 9 points, like that's not a great fantasy day from what was used to be an elite tight end. This injury that he had, that is this the same one Pacheco just had too?
I believe so.
I'm paying way more attention to that injury moving forward because
No, you just sent me a trade. We're talking trade about Isaiah Pacheco, so you should ignore that injury in our Dynasty League.
That's true. I forgot about that. I've got Kareem Hunt. I was just thinking for the playoffs,
That's true.
I could use him if he comes back. But you know what? It's gotten me a little nervous about some of these guys. And if you've watched any Mark Andrews, he does not look like the same. Like he could have had a touchdown last week. I don't know if you saw that play, Andrew. He caught it. It took him so long to get up. Like he caught it around the 2-yard line. And I think I can't remember now, but he was like open, kind of had to dive for the pass or something. And if he just got up quickly, he could have gotten into the end zone, but he did not get up quickly. He just looks like he's aged 5 years over this offseason. So yeah, I am very worried about him. I definitely would prefer to have Likely. Likely looks actually really good when he plays.
Hopefully they keep throwing the ball because some weeks they just decide not to. When you have Derrick Henry, you can do that. Is there any? Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, there is one more. Auden. I think it's a good matchup for him against the Saints. Like if we see Lattimore lock up Mike Evans, obviously Godwin's going to get his work, but I think the next guy could be Cade Auden. I think that he's a guy. Look, I think there's people streaming tight ends at this point. There's people that drafted Mark Andrews that are super disappointed in what he's been doing. Dalton Kincaid, that maybe people have cut him or traded him or whatever. I think that Cade Auden could be like a Hail Mary type play this week.
He will score some points unless you look at week 2 where he had negative points. Cade Auden, I think life's too short to start Cade Auden, but to your point, he's running a lot of routes. So good cardio, Cade Auden.
Yeah. Cool.
No one else standing out there to you, Steven?
No, dude, how deep are we in tight end? There can't be anybody else. There can't be.
It's tight end. There's barely
maybe. You know what? I'll throw one more out there. Theo Johnson. That's good matchup. Bengals give up a lot to the tight end. If you really want like a super Hail Mary, Theo Johnson of the Giants.
That's how I know it's time to end the show. Thank you guys for tuning in.
No, we got to talk about
another one. Defenses and kickers, please. I forgot about those. Yeah, I guess technically some people still use those. Jacob is sighing somewhere. Tell us who you got. Who do you like this week for defenses?
So where is it now? Sorry, I'm trying to. So the Eagles. They're actually now. I don't know what their ownership is now, but it was close to 30% prior to the waivers. Got to start them. If you watched, the Commanders had a good game. The Commanders defense had a good defensive performance against the Cleveland Browns. So I think you got to start the Eagles. I think you got to start the Texans against Drake May this week. I think the Patriots are smart to have him be his first game be at home to start. But I think that's a guy I could picture trying to do too much, trying to prove what he's worth at and throw a few picks, hold on to the ball too long, get sacked, cause fumbles. So I think the Texans are a great start. Those two defenses. And then kickers. Andrew, what's your strategy when you pick a kicker? Do you have any leagues that you've got kickers?
I actually do play in a lot of leagues with kickers. I'm not that anti-kicker.
I think they're kind of fun, actually.
They are. They add some spice to your life. And I have Brandon Aubrey in my favorite league, so I love life.
Nice.
My strategy for kickers, and it's actually proved successful on the season and weekly, you want a couple things. 3 things I look for. 1, good matchup, high-scoring game. Points have to be scored in order for you to have a good time. What's, I think, possibly the most important thing, you need a guy who makes 50-yard field goals. If your coach won't let you bang it out there from 50 yards, we're in the new NFL where if you're 30 yards, you're not kicking. You're going for it. Has to be able to make 50-yard field goals, non-negotiable. The last one, if they're in a dome, massive bump.
Yep. No, and that's why a lot of times you'll see me with the Lions kicker, or you'll see Matt Prater prior to him getting injured. I'll put some of those guys in. But this week, I think that the Commanders kicker, what's his name?
Do they have Joey Sly? No, Seibert?
Yeah, with one of these high-scoring games, I think that they could move the ball a lot, enough for him to be in contention. I think what's his name? Fairburn. You know what the other thing is? I can never pronounce these kickers' names.
Kaimi Fairbairn.
Yes. I think he's good in this one against the Patriots. They're 7-point favorites. I think a lot of times too, they know they don't have to score a lot. So I think in a game like that where it's 4th and 1, if they're playing Kansas City, Stroud's going for it, right? Playing the Patriots, let's just get some points on the board. So I think that he could have a really good one in this one.
All right. Kicker lives matter. Steven's got a point. We're helping you out there. You have to start them. We'll help you start them. But that'll do it for the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all of that. Thank you so much. Hit that like and subscribe button. The best thing you can do is do just that. Share the show, rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get yourself a weekly season guide from fantasyguides.com for less than the price of a large pizza. We just went and did this whole show based on that season guide. Go get you one. Yep. Ignore us and just read that instead. Follow our page on Instagram, X, TikTok, everywhere at Fantasy Guides. I'm Andrew Teuscher. That's Stephen Rippey. Say goodbye to the friends at home.
Thanks, Andrew. This was fun.